No one could have predicted it, not the fans, not the media, not even those closest to them. After years of silence, Can and Demet's paths crossed again in the most unexpected way. It was a glamorous evening in Rome, the annual Hearts of Humanity Gala, where celebrities from around the world gathered for charity, fashion, and fame. Cameras flashed, laughter filled the marble halls, and the red carpet shimmered under the spotlight. But in the middle of all that glitter, something happened that froze everyone in place. Demet Özdemir had just arrived, radiant in a silver dress that caught every reflection of light. She moved gracefully, smiling at reporters, greeting familiar faces, until her steps faltered. Across the room, she saw him. Can Yaman. Dressed in a classic black suit, standing tall, talking to the event organizers with his usual calm confidence. For a split second, time stopped. Her heartbeat quickened, her breath caught. It was as if every unresolved emotion from the past years had suddenly resurfaced. The press immediately sensed the tension. Cameras began to turn, microphones shifted, and whispers rippled through the crowd. Is that Demet? Is that Can? Within moments, journalists were swarming, fans were recording, and social media was already exploding. Can and Demet in the same room after years. Face screaming in fear, fire, one tweet read. What is happening between them? Another followed. Demet tried to compose herself. She forced a smile, pretending to be unfazed, but her eyes betrayed her. They were filled with shock, nostalgia, and something far deeper, a quiet ache that had never truly faded. Ken noticed it too. He froze for a moment, his confident posture softening as their eyes met. It wasn't the look of strangers. It was the look of two souls who had once known everything about each other, and then lost it all. He gave her a faint nod. Just that. No words, no gestures, only a silent acknowledgement of everything they had been through. She hesitated, then mirrored the gesture. The crowd saw politeness, the world saw history repeating itself. Every photographer in the room wanted that shot, the reunion photo. When they finally stood side by side for a brief moment, the energy in the room shifted. You could almost feel it, the tension, the electricity, the weight of unspoken words. That image spread across the internet within minutes. Fans were crying, news outlets were screaming, world shocked, Can and Demet face again after years. It wasn't just a reunion, it was the collision of two stories that the world never stopped obsessing over. And for the first time in a long time, both of them realized that some distances can hide feelings, but can never erase them. As the night went on, the atmosphere at the gala shifted completely. Everyone was pretending to focus on the charity auction, but all eyes were secretly on one thing, the unexpected presence of Can and Demet under the same roof. It felt like the air itself had changed. Every time a camera flashed, someone whispered their names. Every look, every move between them was magnified, analyzed, and shared online within seconds. Demet could feel the weight of it all pressing on her chest. She excused herself from a group of journalists and found a quiet corner near the balcony. The Rome skyline glittered outside, but her thoughts were far darker. She remembered their last conversation, the one that had ended everything. The words still echoed in her mind, maybe it's better if we stop hurting each other. Back then, she had walked away, thinking distance would heal her. But now, seeing him again, she realized how wrong she had been. Time hadn't healed anything. It had only deepened the scar. Can, meanwhile, was trying to play his part, shaking hands, smiling for photos, but every time he caught a glimpse of her, his facade cracked. He couldn't ignore the tremor in his heartbeat. He had promised himself that if he ever saw her again, he would be indifferent. But the truth was impossible to hide. He still cared. Maybe more than ever. When the host of the gala suddenly announced that the two stars would present an award together, the entire hall erupted in whispers. It was pure coincidence, or maybe destiny's cruel joke. Demet froze. Can's expression hardened for a second, then softened as he turned toward her. He took a deep breath and approached slowly. Are you okay with this? He asked quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. She nodded, her voice barely audible. We're professionals. We can handle it. But inside, her hands were shaking. They walked onto the stage side by side, spotlights blazing. The crowd held its breath. The tension was so thick it felt tangible. As they began to speak, reading the award text together, their voices blended perfectly, just like old times. For a moment, the world saw the magic that had once made them unstoppable. The chemistry was undeniable, the connection electric. And yet, beneath the surface, every word they said carried a hidden meaning, a memory, a regret. When they handed the trophy to the winner and the applause erupted, Ken leaned closer and whispered, "You look the same." Demet turned her face slightly toward him. "You don't," she replied softly. "You look tired." He smiled sadly. "Maybe because I am." That tiny exchange, unseen by the cameras, said more than any interview ever could. The audience cheered, but neither of them could hear it anymore. They were lost in the silence of everything left unsaid. The applause faded, the flashes dimmed, and the moment they stepped off that stage, reality hit them both like a wave. The tension they had managed to hide under bright lights now followed them into the quiet backstage corridors. The world saw a perfect reunion, smiles, elegance, control. But behind the curtains, emotions were raw, trembling, and unguarded. Demet moved quickly, trying to escape the chaos of photographers shouting her name. She found refuge near a side balcony that overlooked the city. The cool night air brushed her skin as she tried to catch her breath. But peace was impossible, not tonight. Footsteps approached from behind. Slow. Familiar. Heavy with hesitation. "Demet," she froze. His voice, deep, calm, yet cracked at the edges, cut through the silence like it always did. She didn't turn around. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Maybe," he said quietly, "but I had to." She finally turned to face him. For a moment, neither spoke. The distance between them was only a few steps, but it felt like 1,000 miles, years of pain, pride, and unanswered questions stretching in between. He looked at her the way he used to, not as a co-star, not as a public image, but as the woman who had once been everything to him. "You look different," he murmured. "Different how?" she asked. "Stronger," he said. Then paused. "Colder, too." She looked away. "People change, can. That's what time does." He took a slow breath, his tone trembling slightly. "Or maybe that's just what pain does." Demet tried to keep her voice steady, but the weight of his words cracked something inside her. "You left," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You walked away when everything was falling apart." "I walked away," he replied, "because every word between us had become a wound." The silence that followed was heavy. Neither of them knew whether they wanted to scream or cry. Somewhere far behind them, they could hear laughter and music from the ballroom, a cruel reminder that the world was still spinning while they stood still. "I thought I moved on," Demet finally admitted. "But seeing you tonight, it feels like it all just happened yesterday." He took one step closer. "Maybe it never stopped happening," he said softly. Her eyes glistened with tears she didn't want him to see. "Don't do this," she whispered. "Not again." But his voice broke through, low and sincere. "I just needed you to know. I never stopped caring." For a moment, neither of them could breathe. The tension between them wasn't anger anymore, it was sorrow, longing, and something dangerously close to hope. Behind them, a paparazzo's camera flashed through the glass. In that second, the world got its next viral photo. Ken Yaman and Demet Özdemir, alone, face to face, under the Roman night sky. The internet would explode. But the truth was, no headline could ever describe what was really happening between them. Demet couldn't move. The words he had just said, "I never stopped caring," echoed inside her like a secret she had been running from for years. Her eyes glistened as she turned away, afraid to let him see the tears that had already started to form. "Why now, Ken?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why say this after all this time? When everything between us is already broken?" He hesitated, struggling to find the right words. "Because I kept waiting for the right moment," he admitted. "But maybe there's no such thing." Maybe this, here, tonight, is all we get. Demet laughed softly, bitterly. You really think the world will just forget everything that happened? The fights, the silence, the way we left things? No, he said quietly, stepping closer. I don't care if they forget. I just want to know if you did. That question hung in the air like lightning before a storm. She didn't answer. Her silence said everything he feared, and everything he hoped. Can, she began, her voice breaking. You don't know how hard it was for me to stop waiting. Every time I saw your name, every photo, every rumor, it was like reopening a wound that never healed. He looked at her, eyes burning with emotion. Then stop pretending it healed, he said softly. We both know it didn't. She shook her head, wiping her tears quickly, trying to regain control. You think we can just pick up where we left off? After all this? After everyone watching, judging, turning our lives into headlines again? He smiled faintly, not with arrogance, but sadness. They've always watched, Demet. But what we had, that was ours. No camera, no article could ever define it. For a long moment, they just stood there, the noise of the gala fading into the distance, the lights of Rome shimmering below like tiny fragments of their past. It wasn't about fame, or image, or forgiveness anymore. It was about two people standing in the wreckage of what they once were, wondering if love could still exist amid the ruins. Demet finally whispered, maybe some stories aren't meant to have an ending. He looked at her, his voice soft but steady. Then let's stop pretending ours did. And before she could respond, he took a step forward and pulled her into a quiet, desperate embrace. Not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but for the years they had lost. For the moments that never happened. For the words they had buried. Outside, a camera flash went off again, but neither of them noticed. The world was about to explode with news of the kiss that shocked everyone. Yet for them, it wasn't about shock, it was about truth. For the first time in years, they weren't acting. They were simply feeling. When they finally pulled apart, both were trembling. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was sacred. It was the sound of realization, of acceptance, of something too real to define. People will twist this, Demet said quietly. They'll say it's a stunt, a scandal, anything but what it really is. Let them, Ken replied. We've lived too long for them. Maybe it's time to live for us. She smiled faintly through her tears. You always say the right thing at the wrong time. He smiled back. Then maybe this time, it's not too late. For a moment, they just stood there, no words, no explanations. Just two hearts that had found their way back, even if only for one night. And as Demet finally turned to leave, she paused at the door, looking back one last time. Good night, Can, she said softly. Good night, Demet, he whispered. Until we meet again. When the doors closed behind her, Ken stood alone in the dim light. Outside, the world was already spinning with headlines, reactions, and theories. World shocked, Can and Demet's unexpected reunion turns into an emotional night to remember. But none of them knew the truth. Behind the viral storm, two souls had quietly rewritten their story, not for fame, not for forgiveness, but for closure, or perhaps a new beginning. As the night ended and the city lights flickered below, one thing became certain: some encounters change everything, even when they happen too late.